He did not know that his real test was still to come. A test that would be hell on earth. It is May 2nd, 1968. We are in Loc Ninh, South Vietnam, near the Cambodian border. A hot, humid morning. The air stands still. Roy, now an experienced staff sergeant, is not scheduled for a combat mission that day. He is off duty. He is sitting in the radio room, perhaps drinking a coffee, listening to the static of the radio. He is relaxed. Suddenly, the mood in the room changes. A panicked radio message breaks the routine. "Mayday! Mayday! We are pinned down! We are being overrun!" It is a 12-man Special Forces reconnaissance team. 3 Americans and 9 Montagnard tribesmen. They were on a secret mission in Cambodia to search for a large North Vietnamese army camp. Well, they had found it, or rather, the camp had found them. An entire NVA infantry battalion, almost 1,000 men, had surrounded the 12 men. 1,000 against 12. Roy heard everything over the radio. He heard the screams. He heard the rattling of machine guns. He knew the men out there. They were his friends. 3 rescue helicopters launched immediately. Roy ran outside to the airfield and stared into the sky. He waited. Minutes later, the helicopters came back. They looked like Swiss cheese, riddled with bullets. One of the pilots was dead. Another severely wounded. The machines were smoking. They said, "It is impossible. The enemy fire is too strong. We can't get down. It is suicide." Roy saw the blood inside the returned helicopters. He saw the fear in the pilot's eyes, and he made a decision. It was not a rational decision, it was instinct. He ran to another helicopter that was just starting its rotors. He had no time to get his gear. He had no M16 rifle. He had no helmet, he had no bulletproof vest. He wore only his green uniform and a knife on his belt. He grabbed a medical bag and jumped into the moving helicopter. "Go back!" screamed the pilot. "You don't have a weapon!" Roy shook his head. "Doesn't matter. Get me in there. My guys are dying down there." He crossed himself. He knew he probably wouldn't come back. The helicopter approached the clearing in the jungle. From above, it looked like a fireworks display. Tracer rounds tore through the air. Explosions everywhere. The pilot could not land. The fire was too intense. He hovered about 3 meters above the ground. Roy did not wait. He jumped. He landed hard in the tall grass. Immediately, hundreds of enemies opened fire on him. He was the only target in the open area. He had to run about 70 meters to get to his comrades. 70 meters? That doesn't sound like much. But in a hail of bullets, every meter is an eternity. After a few steps, it happened. A bullet hit him in the right leg. He stumbled. Then, a grenade exploded nearby. Shrapnel bored into his back and his head. He fell down. The pain was blinding. But the adrenaline whipped him forward. He stood up and kept running. Limping, bleeding, but unstoppable. He reached the team. The situation was catastrophic. The team leader was dead. Everyone else was wounded, unable to defend themselves. They lay in the dirt while the NVA soldiers came closer and closer. Roy took command immediately. Although he was severely wounded himself, he began to act. He injected morphine. He applied pressure bandages. He took the rifle of a dead comrade. He was now medic, commander, and assault team all in one person. He grabbed the radio. "Air support, we need napalm. Drop it directly on my coordinates. Danger close." "That is too close," the pilot replied. "Just do it," Roy roared. The jets thundered over their heads and rained hell upon the jungle. Under the cover of the smoke, Roy began to drag the wounded to the helicopter. He could not carry everyone at once. He had to run back into the line of fire again and again. Once, twice, 3 times. Every time he was hit again. A bullet in the shoulder, a shot in the thigh. His body was slowly becoming a map of pain. But he did not stop. He lifted the wounded onto his shoulder while bullets struck the ground all around him. Finally, all the wounded were in the helicopter. Roy was about to get in himself when he saw the team leader still lying on the ground. He was dead, but Roy had sworn an oath. No one gets left behind. He ran back to retrieve the body. In that moment, an NVA soldier fired directly at him. The bullet hit Roy in the stomach. It was a devastating hit. He was thrown backward. At the same time, enemy fire hit the helicopter pilot. The machine sagged, the rotors touched the ground, and the helicopter crashed onto its side. Silence, then screams, and fire. Everything had been for nothing. The rescue had failed. Now they were all on the ground, injured, trapped between burning wreckage and an army of enemies. Roy lay in the dirt. His intestines were spilling out of the abdominal wound. He was losing massive amounts of blood. In this moment, any human being would have given up. It was over. But Roy Benavidez, he was not finished yet. He crawled out of the debris. He pulled the wounded men from the burning wreck. He placed them in a small defensive perimeter. He gave them their weapons back. "Shoot!" he wheezed. "Shoot as long as you breathe." Hours passed. The sun burned mercilessly. Thirst tormented them almost as much as the wounds. Ants crawled over Roy's open stomach. Flies settled on his blood-encrusted eyes. But he continued to crawl from man to man. He gave them courage. He prayed with them. He knew he would die. But he wanted to fight until the last cartridge. Finally, after 6 hours, they heard the familiar sound of rotors again. A new rescue helicopter. It landed under heavy fire. Roy mobilized his very last reserves. He could barely stand. He helped load the men into the new helicopter. He leaned on the shoulders of the others. As he brought the last man inside, it happened. A North Vietnamese soldier broke out of the bushes. He saw Roy. He saw that the American was at his end. No ammunition. Barely conscious. The enemy stormed towards Roy and smashed him in the face with the rifle butt. Roy's jaw broke. He went down. The soldier raised his rifle with the bayonet fixed. He thrust it down. He wanted to skewer Roy like an insect. Roy had no weapon. He had no strength, but he had reflexes. He grabbed the blade of the bayonet with his bare hands. The metal cut deep into his palms, severing tendons and muscles. But Roy did not let go. He pulled the enemy close to him. With his other hand, he drew his own knife. It was a last desperate act of pure violence. He rammed the knife into the enemy. Once, twice. The NVA soldier collapsed. Roy stood up, covered in blood, with a broken jaw, with slashed hands, with an open stomach. He turned around. He saw 2 more enemies approaching the helicopter. He had no weapon left, but he saw an AK-47 lying on the ground. He picked it up. He shot the 2 attackers. Only when the last enemy was dead, did he let the crew pull him into the helicopter. As they lifted off, he held his hanging intestines with one hand. The blood flowed so heavily that it covered the floor of the helicopter. 6 hours. He had survived 6 hours in hell. Back at the base in Loc Ninh, it was a scene of horror. They unloaded the wounded, body parts, blood, chaos everywhere. The doctors worked in overdrive. Triage. Who can be saved? Who is already dead? Roy was placed on 2 chairs because no stretcher was free. He did not move. He was not visibly breathing. His body was a complete wreckage. 37 injuries. Bullets in the legs, shrapnel in the back, gut shot, bayonet stab in the arm, broken jaw, shattered face. The doctor examined him briefly. He felt no pulse. With that blood loss, it was no wonder. The doctor shook his head. He is gone. He waved to the orderlies. Pack him up. They fetched the black body bag. Roy heard this. He was in a state between life and death, but his consciousness was there. He felt the cold plastic. He felt the zipper closing. Darkness surrounded him. He knew that if they closed the bag, no one will hear him anymore. He would suffocate or freeze to death in the morgue. Panic rose within him, but his body was paralyzed with shock. The zipper was almost at the top. Roy concentrated everything that was left of his life on a single muscle. He could not speak. He could not lift his hand, but he still had fluid in his mouth, blood and saliva. In the moment, the doctor leaned over him to close the zipper completely. Roy gathered his last strength, and he spat the blood directly into the doctor's face. The doctor recoiled. He cursed, but then he saw it. He saw the life in Roy's eyes. "Damn it!" cried the doctor. "He is alive! Get him to the OR immediately!" That spit, that final defiant gesture, saved his life. Roy Benavidez survived. But the fight was not over yet. He spent almost a year in the hospital. Again, he had to learn to walk. Again, everyone said it was impossible. And again, he proved them wrong. He lived for many more years, but his story remained a secret for a long time. The mission in Cambodia was classified, top secret. It was not until 1981, 13 years later, that the file was opened. The President of the United States, Ronald Reagan, invited Roy to the White House. He was to receive the Medal of Honor, the highest military award of the USA. As President Reagan read the citation, he had to pause. He turned to the journalists and said, "If someone had submitted this story to me as a screenplay for a movie, I would have rejected it. I would have said, no one will believe us. A single human being cannot endure that much." But Roy stood there, in his uniform, proud, unbroken. He accepted the medal, but not for himself. In his speech he said, "I do not wear this medal for myself. I wear it for those who did not come back, and for those who saved me." Roy Benavidez died on November 29, 1998. Not by a bullet, but due to complications from his diabetes. He died peacefully, surrounded by his family. Why do we tell this story today? Not to glorify war. War is terrible. We tell it to remind ourselves what the human spirit is capable of. We all have days when we want to give up, days when the pain seems too great. The next time you think you can't go on, think of Roy Benavidez. Think of the man who was wounded 37 times and kept fighting. Think of the man who spat in death's face. Never give up, no matter how dark it is. The human will is stronger than any weapon in this world. If this story moved you, show us with a like. Subscribe to the channel for more true stories of real heroes. And write in the comments, what is true bravery to you? Until next time.